Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Janice Lo. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. HSBC profits shoot up on higher interest rates and pivot to Asia. The government rejects a claim that the well found dead in Sai Kung yesterday would be alive if vessels had been banned from the area. And the death toll in heavy downpours in northern China has risen to at least 20, with many missing. HSBC has raised its performance target for this year and next after reporting bumper profits for the 6 months ending in June. The bank is paying an interim dividend of 10 US cents per share while preparing to buy back $2 billion of shares. Raymond Young reports.
A transformation plan which involves cutting costs and shifting the focus to the east seems to be paying dividends for HSBC. Europe's largest bank, which derives 2/3 of its revenue from Asia, posted a pre-tax profit of $8.8 billion for the second quarter of this year, an 89% jump from the same period last year and well ahead of expectations of $8 billion. Net profit for the 3 months ending in June stood at $6.6 billion, up 27% year-on-year. For the first 6 months of the year, net profit more than doubled to $18.1 billion. Revenue surged 50% to $36.9 billion, driven by higher net interest income due to rate increases. The bumper revenue offset expected credit losses and other impairment charges of $1.3 billion, up $0.3 billion from the first half of 2022.
It includes $0.3 billion for our mainland China commercial real estate exposure booked in Hong Kong and a $0.3 billion charge for the UK. To remind you, this is a more normalized level of charge that we expect for this year and is a sign that our main credit indicators are holding up.
The bank has announced a second interim dividend of 10 US cents per share, as well as a share buyback of $2 billion over 3 months. The bright performance prompted HSBC to raise its return on tangible equity to the mid-teens this year and the next, up from the previous target of 12%. Hang Seng Bank, which is majority owned by HSBC, reported a 79% jump in profit in the first half of 2023. It also announced a second interim dividend of $1 HKD a share. Raymond Yang, HKIBC.
A conservationist says a whale that was seen in Sai Kung might not have died had the government banned vessels from entering the area. His claim came as experts tried to find the cause of death.
Ocean Park staff are racing against time to perform an autopsy on a whale amid fears that the carcass may decompose because of the heat. But it would take some time to determine the cause of death of the whale, which was found in the waters of Sai Kung yesterday, several weeks after it was first spotted. Speaking on a radio program this morning, Philip Wong, General Curator of Ocean Park, confirmed that the 8-meter-long male creature had a slash in the middle of its back. The injury was likely caused by vessels hitting the whale. An online video appeared to show that its stomach was cut open. Wong clarified that the white-colored substance on its body was fatty tissue and not internal organs. He added that further checks are required to confirm if it's a Bright's whale. Wong urged the public not to go whale watching, as it would cause a nuisance to the mammals. Hong Kong has a code of conduct for dolphin watching, but it is not mandatory. Tyson Chang of the Dolphin Conservation Society hopes the government would consider enacting laws to create a deterrent effect. He noted that when a Bright's whale was spotted off Shenzhen 2 years ago, the authorities there set up a restricted area and barred fishing boats and pleasure craft from entering. He said if Hong Kong had done the same, the tragedy that befell the whale might have been avoided.
The government has defended the decision not to set up a Nozel Zone to protect the whale in Sai Kung, saying such a move is unfeasible.
There are a lot of difficulties. For example, the whale can appear in this place and disappear and then reappear again in other places. And therefore, how to protect it is complicated. And also, there are different views among the experts on whether and how they can bring the whale back to the ocean. What they can agree is that they should observe for a longer time.
Leung Siu-fai, Director of Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation, said that the Code of Conduct for dolphin watching also applies to whale watchers. But as whales are bigger, the government will review how far vessels should stay away from them. Leung believes if there are clearer and more detailed guidelines on dealing with whales in the city, the department would have handled the situation better. The death toll from the heavy rain that has lashed Beijing and the surrounding areas following Typhoon Doksuri has climbed to at least 20, with 19 missing. Even as rescue and relief operations are stepped up, China is bracing for another powerful storm. Sachin Katvi reports.
Relief workers loaded 4 helicopters with supplies including food, raincoats and water for stranded residents of Montagu district, one of the worst hit areas in Beijing. Around 150,000 households in Montagu have no running water. More than 50,000 people in the capital have been evacuated. For the past 2 days, Montagu and Fengshan districts received relentless rainfall exceeding the annual average. Roads and alleyways turned into waterways. Cars, buses and other parked vehicles were washed away. It was a matter of time before gushing waters submerged this bridge. Most unsecured structures were swept off. Pumps trying to drain out water were of no use as there was too much water everywhere. Sections of roads crumbled in hilly areas. Container trucks at a warehouse facility were no match for the swirling waters. Nearly 400 flights were cancelled and hundreds delayed at Beijing's 2 airports. Suburban and long-distance train services were disrupted. President Xi Jinping has ordered an all-out effort to search and rescue people. The rainfall has eased, but another storm is heading towards eastern China and could hit coastal areas later in the week. Sachin Katvi, HKIBC.
Myanmar's junta has pardoned former leader Aung San Suu Kyi on some charges, reducing her jail term by 6 years. But the generals also postponed elections, which they promised to hold this month. Azam Khan reports.
State media in military-ruled Myanmar reported that the National Defense and Security Council has extended a state of emergency for another 6 months, pushing back elections, which the generals promised to hold this month. The military, which seized power 2.5 years ago, blamed ongoing violence for the decision. But in a move aimed at appeasing the population, the military top brass granted partial clemency to democracy icon Aung San Suu Kyi. This will take away 6 years from her 33-year jail sentence imposed on conviction of various offenses, including election fraud and corruption. Once championed by the West, 78-year-old Suu Kyi has been widely criticized for failing to stop the massacre of thousands of Muslim Rohingyas. The atrocities prompted almost 1 million Rohingyas to flee Buddhist-majority Myanmar for neighboring Bangladesh or risk their lives traveling by boat to other countries. In 2019, Suu Kyi was accused by the United Nations Criminal Court of Justice of genocide, which she denied, claiming the reports were exaggerated. Azam Khan, HKIBC.
At least 17 workers have been crushed to death in a crane collapse on a highway under construction in the western Indian state of Maharashtra. The tragedy occurred near Salambe village, 80 kilometers north of Mumbai. A mobile gantry crane, which was used to erect girders, toppled onto large concrete slabs, crushing the workers below. A search for survivors was launched as the government ordered an inquiry. The families of the deceased have been promised financial aid of $2,400 each, while 3 injured workers will each receive $600. Cast members of the HBO hit series Euphoria have expressed shock and sorrow at the death of Angus Cloud, one of the show's rising stars. Cloud, who was 25, died at his family home in California, 1 week after he buried his father. The cause of death has not been given, but he had been battling mental issues. Cloud's breakout role came in 2019 as a sweet-natured drug dealer named Fasco alongside Zendaya in the drama. Retail sales in Hong Kong have risen for the 7th month in a row, but a trade association says it will take some time before purchases return to pre-pandemic levels. Hui Wang reports.
Retail sales in Hong Kong surged 19.6% to $33.1 billion in June from a year ago, as inbound tourism and consumption sentiment improved. Sales were 1.1% higher than in May, but the value of purchases dropped slightly. For the first 6 months, sales jumped 20.7% year-on-year. An increase in the number of tourists led to a 64.3% rise in sales of jewelry, watches and clocks, and valuable gifts, up 12% from May. Food, alcoholic drinks, and tobacco sales doubled to 6.6%. But furniture and fixtures dropped 6.4%, and purchases in supermarkets fell 3.5%. The Retail Management Association noted an improvement in tourism-related sectors, but said sales have not fully recovered to pre-pandemic levels.
Overall, the retail market in Hong Kong is still developing positively, showing moderate growth. It is progressing under ups and downs. The most important thing is to continue to maintain an upward trend.
The government expects retail sales to continue improving with the help of consumption vouchers and a rise in the number of arrivals. Chloe Wong, HKIBC.
Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index ended the day down by 67 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent lost 40 cents, Alibaba gained 35 cents. Meituan lost 80 cents, Kuaishou gained 80 cents, and HSBC gained $1.10. To the foreign exchange against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro is at 8.54, the pound's at 9.95, and the Australian dollar is at 5.16. Over in the UK market, the FTSE 100 is currently down by 20 points. The 6-day Anime Expo has ended, with enthusiasts lining up as early as 5 a.m. to make sure they do not miss out on the last day action. Excited visitors jostled to be the first ones to enter the Convention and Exhibition Center in Wan Chai. Visitors said this year's convention was a bustling affair and exhibitors did a roaring trade. With the mask mandate dropped, cosplayers were able to express themselves fully. They put on elaborate makeup and dressed up as their favorite cartoon characters to enjoy themselves and impress others. Onto the weather now. The sun will be out tomorrow for another hot day with only a bit of rain. Temperatures will range between 28 and 33 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Tuesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Janice Lo. Good evening.